Hey parents, Carmine here with your video review of Gears of War 4. Gears of War is back. I didn't think it would happen, but it's here, and it's loud, and it's bloody, and it's oh so messy, but that doesn't matter because it's Gears and it's awesome. You'll get no surprises from this game. Gears of War has always been straightforward with its mature content. Heavy amounts of violence and language, total absence of everything else. Gears is a brutal, brutal game filled with blood and gore. The iconic weapon of the game has a chainsaw bayonet that you use to saw people in half. It's extremely violent and easily earns a recommended age of 18 years old. But that makes for a boring video, and besides, you all have pressed me hard to talk about content filters. Gears of War 4 does include mature content filters, which surprised me a bit because of how much seriously graphic content there is. But I decided to run through some of the campaign and multiplayer with the content filters on, so I could see exactly how these filters changed the content itself. There are 3 content filters for Gears 4. One is for blood, one is for gore, and one is for language. And in the multiplayer, they're all straightforward and very effective. If you turn off gore, no one will explode into bits no matter what you do. I even tested executions, chainsawing through enemies left and right, trying to pop their heads off, shotgunning them from up close, but I never saw a speck of gore. Blood was the same way. The game just substituted blood for sparks. You could still tell when you were hitting enemies, but instead of flecks of red, you got flecks of bright yellow and white. The language filter was the most effective by far. The Gears soldiers swear like sailors both in the single player and in the multiplayer, but with the language filter on, that stopped completely.
Then we're burning your hive to the ground!
But before you get your hopes up, content filters are not that straightforward. Despite the filters, the fact is that the violence, the real heart of the mature content, is still there. You're still blowing people away with a shotgun, you're still mowing them down with a mauler, you're still sawing them in half with a chainsaw. Even if you don't see the results of what happened, the game doesn't hide what you're doing. It's still brutally violent, even if the end result isn't as graphic. But that's not why I choose to avoid mentioning content filters. If every game's content filters worked the way that Gears does in multiplayer, I'd mention it and call it a day. But Gears 4's campaign highlights the real problems behind content filters. On the surface, the filter seems straightforward. Turn on the language filter and nobody ever swears. Bam, the end. But it's much more complicated than that, especially for mission-critical elements of the story. Those beautiful cutscenes you see in the campaign are all pre-rendered, so once the content is made, it can't be undone, not without redoing the whole thing, and that gets expensive quickly. So there is still blood and gore in the cutscenes, in some cases a significant amount of it.
Come on, we walk from here.
The fact is, I don't mention the content filters because I can't trust them to be completely reliable. Developers miss things, they let things slip through the cracks. I can't say that the gore filter removes all gore from Gears 4 because I know for a fact that it doesn't, and to me, even mentioning the presence of the gore filter without doing a thorough examination means that I'd be making an educated guess at best, and to me that's a disservice to you and to your parents. On top of that, I know from experience how absurdly easy the filters are to turn off. But in some cases, these filters might make a difference in my age rating. Not for Gears, even with the content filters, Gears is a pretty solid 18. In fact, even games like Call of Duty and Battlefield wouldn't have much of an age rating change. They're pretty solidly in their categories. But games like Skyrim, for example, are worth mentioning if they have content filters. Without the beheading executions I saw in Skyrim, the game would have easily gotten a 14, and content filters can prevent just that. So in the future, if the game is on a border between 2 categories, I'll check for content filters and mention them as a mitigating factor. But as for Gears, it gets a recommended age of 18 years old. If you like my content, consider contributing to my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. Right now, I'm simultaneously working on Dishonored 2 and Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Both of those should be done fairly shortly, so keep an eye out for them coming soon.